Hello, welcome. Today I'm going to be working on the lovely Michelle, and we're going to be doing a glute and full back massage. And let's go ahead and get started. So when I am working on someone that has a lot of tension in an area of their back, I really like to start with glutes. And I'm going to go ahead and do some compressive work in here. So I really like to start with glute medius, and I'm going to go ahead and just go right on in with my elbow. I've worked on Michelle many times, and I know she's someone who's pretty comfortable with deep tissue. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of start working my way into that muscle. I would never go in with my elbow too if I'm not familiar with my client and their body, because you don't really have like any sensitivity in your elbow. Not the same way that you do, your with a soft fist or your finger pads. So just intuitively, it's a lot harder to work with your elbow if you don't know what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a little bit of shaking. This is really good for the hips, the hip joints as well. And it's a really nice distraction technique if I'm going to be doing deeper work. And I definitely am today. I think that the worst deep tissue massages I've had, though, are when the therapist doesn't do any soft tissue work and they just go in like way too hard too fast. So there's a finesse that like you need to use if you're going to do deeper work effectively and in a way that's truly healing. You can definitely cause more damage with deep tissue if you don't do it correctly. If you're new to massage and you're not totally comfortable with glute work yet, I'd say just keep it really simple. And I think like mastering the glute medius and like getting really familiar with that muscle is a great place to start. I find that the glute max and the piriformis is a little bit trickier to work on personally. I feel like the medius is just a little more straightforward. Not to mention it's so connected to what's going on in the hips and the low back especially. I'm at a point now where I can start going a little bit deeper if Michelle is wanting that. And just a little bit deeper. And there's little things too, like if it can start to feel like overwhelming as a therapist if you're new to massage. So if you're like someone that just needs to focus on being still when you're doing that compressive work to do it well, I'd say do that. You don't have to, do anything extra like that rocking. Sometimes this feels easier physically for me than just a static hold as well. With this compressive work, I'm working in towards the spine. And just in general, when you're doing deep tissue, you want to be working into the muscle. And just taking my time here, this glute medius. And I really like to begin, if somebody wants glute mixed in with back work, I like to start with the glutes because it kind of like just hopefully encourages the back muscles to let go a little bit and be easier to work on. And I'm just going to go in with some nice compressions, just kind of warming everything up a little bit, not doing anything too fancy, or not doing anything that I have to concentrate on too intensely yet. Just always starting broadly and then kind of working more locally. And it's nice just kind of weaving in little moves throughout the massage where it doesn't feel choppy. That's one thing that I really struggled with when I was starting my practice, was I just felt kind of like, I don't know, my flow would get disrupted with certain moves. Just little things you can do and weave it all together a little more. So I'm going to not lose contact with Michelle. I'm just going to kind of walk my way over, and I'm going to do this glute work on this left side. And just remember that like you haven't worked on this side yet, so don't go in with the same amount of pressure that you ended with on the other side. It can be kind of hard to gauge that sometimes, but starting fresh on this left side. And just little things. So if it's actually a lot easier if you can like rest your hand and your forearm on your client's back a little bit. This is going to be a lot harder if I'm trying to just keep my arm lifted. And personally, I really like to incorporate the rocking for the joints and just for different reasons. You do need to be really careful. Sometimes this around the sacrum can have some really bony spots if you're working on a smaller female. So when you're doing this compressive work, you just need to be sure that you're not pressing on bone that doesn't feel very good. And again, I'm working in towards the spine. I'm not just pressing down, we're pressing in. If I only have time to work on one glute muscle, it's going to be the glute medius. Just hold a lot of tension in that muscle without even realizing it. And I'm going to go ahead and go in with some compressions in this erector area, and really just not doing anything fancy here, just warming up the soft tissue a little bit. And this is also a way to kind of give Michelle an idea of what we're going to be doing, so there's not a whole lot of surprises. Is my shirt getting in the way? I hope not. And just a nice little stretch for the low back especially. I don't have one client who doesn't like this stretch. It usually feels really, really good. And I'm gonna grab my oil. I'm working with a moderate amount of oil today. I want like a nice glide. So sometimes I'll want to do drier work depending on what I'm going to be doing. And so like applying the oil is definitely part of the massage. I'm not just trying to separate the two because it just feels better. So nice and slow to start, just using the heel of my hands. And whenever you're doing glute and back work, it's really nice if you can end that stroke down by the hips, but you need to make sure that your client's comfortable with it, especially if you're working on someone that's draped. You don't typically want your hands to go underneath the sheet, but when you use short strokes, it can be a lot less satisfying. And when you can tie different areas of the body together in one stroke, it just can feel very healing. I like to just wrap my way around the iliac crest a little bit and then move into those hips a little bit in that stroke. And my favorite way to work the erector muscles from this angle in front of the table is with soft fists. It's just a really natural way to get in there. And I'll even get into that glute medius a little bit if I can. And before I forget, I want to thank a few of our patrons. I'd like to thank Love and Live, WH, and Gwen S. Thank you guys so much for your support. So at this point, I kind of need to ask myself like how much time I have. So, your routine is going to kind of vary depending on how you're budgeting your time and what your focus is. So whenever I work on the glute medius, I like to work on this thicker connective tissue around the iliac crest. It's just super healing, and it's like a match made in heaven if you can work both of those areas at the same time in the same session. And if I wanted to spend more time, I might go in with my elbow and my forearm, but keeping it pretty simple today. And I'm going to go ahead and on my stroke up, I'm going to focus on the lats a little bit more, just making every stroke count. And I'm going to end with a little bit of deep tissue here. So I'm going to go ahead and just walk my way around, and I'm going to go in with my forearm, focusing on those erector muscles. This is my favorite way to do work in the mid-back because I feel so stable, and whenever I'm working so close to the spine, like you have to feel confident, you have to feel stable. And if you feel more comfortable, kind of a nice way if you're just learning massage, if you want to just protect the spine a little bit more, then you can actually just use one hand as a safeguard, which takes the you don't have to think about it. You can just focus on working on that muscle, those 3 muscles. And The only not great thing about this technique is sometimes if you're working on someone that's really ticklish, I find that if you use a more broad tool, your whole forearm, it's less ticklish. And just your elbow. And you know, even 30 seconds of trigger point work around the scapula can go a long way. Can feel really healing. Always when I'm doing deep tissue work too, like when I finish one side, I really need to like take a breath and a drink of water because it does take a good bit of energy. So just make sure that you're not rushing to the other side. And I'm gonna go ahead and walk my way over. And same thing. Focusing on those erector muscles. Working my way into that trap where they get closer to the shoulders. Not taking as much time on this left side. But just fitting in some of that trigger point work on this left upper trap before I finish. And just a nice broad stroke to finish, something that feels really nice. And I will say, just when you're getting that, glute hip back work done, it's so much more satisfying if you can bring that stroke into above the iliac crest. It just feels more satisfying. And that is all for today. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed today's video, you should check out our Patreon page where you'll find some exclusive content. I look forward to seeing you there.
Join us for 14 and 30-day programs, hour-long classes, and much more on our yoga app, Yoga Plus by Psyche Truth. It's free to download and features a variety of wellness content, including yoga, fitness, Pilates, guided meditations, and interviews with dozens of wellness experts.